tenor for a while. So yeah, I really like how we as a group we tackle repertoire that's of this kind of age in the original keys. So that means that I get to return to my glory days as a treble and sing the tune, which is good for me. But the boys might have different opinions about tenor parts. I don't know.
No, great. So yeah. Oh, well, does everyone have a different opinion about tenor parts? Do you find that you sort of stick on the same part, or do you move around, Josh?
Well, for me, I say because I kind of sit in between kind of like the high and the lows, actually it doesn't work out too badly for me. But I think for voice parts such as kind of Guy and Joe, who are kind of high up in their voice parts, I say in a normal standard kind of choir setting. I guess you guys struggle slightly more with the low stuff normally in normal kind of SATB choirs.
Yes, I think so. I mean, if I'm engaged to sing in an SATB choir, I'm very much a first tenor. And if I am a second tenor, I am of decreased use, shall we say. It goes a bit low. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, but we're very lucky in the group in that particularly you've got the top three parts of the Gesualdo 6 today, and we have ranges that dovetail a lot into each other. So my high tenor voice really sits pretty much like that with Guy's voice, particularly in the group. And Josh's tenor voice is fantastically adept at singing very low for a tenor. So we kind of cover all sorts of mid ranges, but then the top and middle kind of dovetail really nicely with each other.
I think that's what kind of makes our kind of sound kind of work, actually, because everyone's relatively comfortable in their pitches, or everyone's uncomfortable at the same time. So it's balance and ensemble wise, it kind of still works, I think.
I'm sure that people who are watching and joining us today are all going to have had moments where they felt like that with their choir. You know, some pieces which fit really well together and fit really well into your ranges as an ensemble, and others where everyone's sort of feeling like they're all pushing the envelope at the same time.
That can be very exciting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So here's how today's going to work. We've got a slightly longer session than our usual hour. We've got an hour and 15 minutes. And that's because these sessions, we always dive in so much that these sessions always fly past so quickly. So I think the aim is we've got 3 new pieces for you today that are not part of the repertoire we're learning for the project. We've got Byrd's Ave Verum, Tomkins When David Heard, and the Silver Swan of Arkadelt. What's Jacques Arkadelt, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to use those as the foundation starting point for exploring vocal technique and taking advantage of the incredible skill we have in the room to sort of find out how we sing the piece, how you approach particularly early music in a healthy way without just stamping on your vibrato, and you know, and looking at different things, and also having an opportunity for you guys to ask questions if you've got any queries or things that you've always wished you could ask to somebody who sings for a living, you know, is a really quite intensive voice user, you know, and how they manage that challenge, then now is your time to ask those questions. Not literally now, but at some point in this session. So it's part little private concert and part behind the scenes. So I think we should start, if we're ready to, Jamie, with a little concert, and maybe we'll start with the Byrd, and then look at some. Oh yeah, great! In fact, let's have a show of hands of people who've sung Byrd's Ave Verum before. Yes, Margaret, Assumpta, Kat. Oh, Guy, Joe, and Josh. Yes, of course you have. You're on the video. CA, in Japan. I don't know what your name is, but hi. I've been looking through your Christmas Carol suggestion just earlier on today. So I'm madly programming Christmas at the moment with everybody's suggestions. And more waves on page 2 for Byrd Ave Verum. Who have we got? Jane, Jean. I thought I saw Wendy and David waving, but there you go. Anyway, let's have a listen to it. And if you haven't heard it before, then I am delighted that this is the moment that you're going to discover it. This is the Gesualdo 6 singing Byrd Ave Verum. I'd forgotten how much I love that piece. The Amen, it's one of the top Amens, isn't it, actually? Very short and sweet, but
I think it was
really
Andrew Carwood who once said that he wanted to record a whole disc of just Amens. So maybe
that would be a good one. Yeah.
maybe that could be a stay-at-home choir thing for the future. Just get a whole. Oh, so good.
I love it. So tell us, Joe's like, yes. So tell us, what are the challenges of singing this piece? I'm sure that when they've heard it, several people will be like, oh yes, I have sung this in the past.
I think maybe it's as a piece, it's relatively simple. Everyone sings together at the same time. So you have to work extra hard. There's nothing hiding what you're doing. So it's all about kind of really working as the ensemble, really kind of getting the breaths together, kind of phrasing it all together as well. So you really have to know the music incredibly well.
And I suppose you have to know the other voices that you're working next to as well.
Yes, every constituent part is very much your friend in this piece. And solace in the other sounds that everyone's making around you, and I think that's the joy of working in a small group as well, is that you're so with your own part. Of course, you're very intertwined with it because you're on your own singing it, but you're also incredibly close to the other parts in the ensemble, and it's a real intimacy, which I think it's nice to think about with William Byrd in particular, because of all the trials and tribulations of his life, living as he did through lots of religious turmoil in his country. And this one is in Latin. It's very simple, but it is very, very as I say, intimate, and you can imagine him singing it with his friends. Under the cover of darkness, perhaps.
Well, actually, there are loads of people in the room who are not from the UK. So would you mind just delving into that a little bit more? What was going on in the country at the time, and what was it that William Byrd had to deal with?
Well, William Byrd is we're going to commemorate, I should say, next year his 400th anniversary of his death. That was in 1623, and he lived through the reign of Elizabeth the First. But before then, the country was the UK, I should say, England, I should say, even more specifically, was going through religious turmoil from Catholicism to Protestantism. They were very much at loggerheads during this period, and the country, with the new monarch, would change from one to the other. Byrd is, and musicians therefore had to react differently and set their music in different texts, one in English and the other in Latin. English for the Protestant, new Church of England style of worship that was very considered with what the words were, and that they could be intelligibly understood by those that were listening. And on the other side, the Latin texts, they could also be more mellifluous and more polyphonic and slightly less clear in terms of the intelligibility, and therefore the music could be perhaps slightly freer. Byrd was perhaps uniquely placed in favour with the monarchy, that he could just traverse the path and write pretty much what he wanted.
He sailed pretty close to the wind, didn't he?
He'd very, very, very close to it. Yes, indeed. And we've got lots of exciting projects next year looking into the secrecy behind what he was up to. But it's a fascinating period to delve into. But the music is so exquisitely beautiful, I think, because of the intensity of the time.
You can see the big difference between a piece like Vigilate in the Latin, which is kind of mad, loads of things going on all at different times, and then If You Love Me, which is in English, homophonic, and this piece is almost like a middle ground to that. It's to say for a Latin kind of Catholic kind of motet, it's actually surprisingly homophonic. Everything kind of mostly happens together, only just about pulls apart and then kind of moves back together. The fact that the Amen at the end is completely together, you don't often see that in kind of Catholic kind of motets and that type of stuff.
Yes, it's quite interesting. He seems to be borrowing from one style and applying it to the other. The in terms of technical things, for me, when you look at a score of this piece, when you're given it in a choir, as I was given at school and that sort of thing, one of the difficult things taking it off the page, as it were, is understanding that bar lines are something that we've added to Byrd's original score, right? So Byrd is, in common with a great deal of the church music of the time, is always verging on the edge of a dance, no matter how kind of sad and pained the text or the setting is. So there's lots of moments of this where, despite the fact that nominally it says it's in, what does it say? It's in common time at the beginning. So nominally in 4, or maybe even 2, but this piece is largely in 3, and that's across bar lines. It's one of those things that when we go to the Latin text, we understand the stresses therein. Something like vere passum and immolatum. When you get to the word stress, that's really where you want to be heading in each phrase, as opposed to on the downbeats of the 4. So to stop it sounding too 4 square, and that's something we worked at a lot in our, as we came to understand it together. And when you start seeing those 3s across the bar line, and you start playing around with them and doing, having a kind of bit of a kind of experiment really with what that does to your phrasing, that's where this music then comes alive and it can flow forward, as well as just sitting on the back foot the whole time. This piece is one of those pieces that can end half the speed it starts, unless you're quite careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy, you've actually hit on something that I really want to put a pin in and come back to, because I want to get us singing some bits of this, just little snippets and phrases, so that you can start to put those techniques that Guy's just mentioned into practice. But first, let's just get everybody up and moving and have a bit of a warm up, because we are going to do some singing in this session. So Guy, can we put a pin in that, the idea of phrasing and how we move through the lines? And the lovely Josh has kindly agreed to lead us in just a 5-minute warm up, so that we can get everything working. Josh.
Yes. Well, actually, we were going to split it between the 3 of us.
Oh, great.
So I think Guy's going to kick it off with a little bit of brain gym, just to get our heads working.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a good opportunity. Now, I'm wearing my headphones, which I hadn't considered when I was thinking about my warm-ups. So this will be a fun opportunity for me to poke myself in the eye. I'm sure you're all sitting at your desks and that sort of thing. So let's have a little bit of think for how we're sitting. Feel free to stand if you'd like, but I'm going to stay sitting. And what we want to be able to think about, I'm even going to have to move my camera. This is a sign of how bad my posture is when I'm sitting on my Zoom. So if we can think about where our shoulders are with respect to our hips, are our feet flat on the ground? I think probably ideally about kind of hip width apart. And then think about your sitting muscles, have a roll back, think about your pelvis as being a bowl of soup. We don't want it pouring out the front and doing that, or we don't want it pouring out the back. So just have a nice kind of play around with that. And then just think about the longest stretch that we can have between our pelvis and our shoulders. And that should lead us up into thinking about our neck. So have a bit of a play around with the head, I've just done a massive click. They probably heard it through my headphones in my neck. And there should be a lovely pivot point where it doesn't feel like you're having to hold it at all. There's some very clever muscles in our necks that hold our heads up all day without really feeling tired. So there's a lovely pivot point we should find. And that gives us an opportunity to think about this space. So just give yourselves a little bit of a rub in maxilis eius, as Jeremiah the prophet would have, in your cheeks here. This is a really important resonating space. So much of what we're doing in this is quiet singing, but it's quiet resonant singing. And this is where we're going to find these vowels that we're going to be playing around with. Have a go under the jaw, stick your thumb up into this sort of space where your tongue should be. That's very good. And now we're just going to get the brain engaged. So if you can all, for me, this is where I would pinch my left earlobe. I'm going to tap myself here. And then over the top of that, the bridge of the nose with the other hand, and then put your hands down on the table or by your sides, and then just go to the other one. I did it wrong. Fantastic. That's a good sign. And we're just going to set up a little cross crawl going here, where we're going to, this is a really good, as I can see some of you smiling. There you are. Yeah, very good. This is, I'm very sad our bass Sam isn't with us today, because I always use this as an opportunity to point out he poked himself straight in the eye the first time we did this. Well done. When you all woke up this morning, I'm sure you would have all told me that you know where your nose and your ears are, and yet somehow our brains don't always pick that up. This is a really useful thing to just set up so that your brain has something else to think about when you're doing your kind of breathing and vocalizing warm-ups. So I might suggest that if you feel like it, leave this going while Josh does some breathing.
Fantastic. So we're just going to start working some of these muscles further down here and get the diaphragm working. So copy after me. Ra, pa, ta, ka. Sh, sh, s, s.
Oh, original sound, please, Josh.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. We got quite far.
Fantastic. Original sound is now on. Sorry. And then if we could put some of these together, so just really kind of working these muscles down here. So ra, pa, ta, ka, sh, sh, s, s. Pa, ta, ka, sh, sh, s, s. F, 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 whoosh, 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 f, f, whoosh, 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 whoosh. Fantastic. So really working these muscles down here, and these are really good for the kind of consonants at the beginning of words. It'd be really useful when we get along to the Tomkins, when David heard for Absalom, my son, I'm really kind of getting all these muscles working. Now, we've done the consonants. We're now going to work on some of the vowels. So we're going to imagine you've got a ball of string. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to excuse my fingerless gloves. I'm currently in a house with no boiler and no kitchen. So it's a little bit cold where I am. So yeah, imagine you've got a ball of string in front of you, which is going to represent your breath. And we're going to unravel this ball of string, this ball of breath, to a s. And trying to really use up all the breath, but equally through 8 beats. So we're going to breathe in for 4 beats and then out for 8 beats. In, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and breathe in. Fantastic. So brilliant. We want to get all the way to the end of the breath. So really, when we take a breath, it's a nice snatch breath, and everything just kind of resets itself. So we're going to do one more of those, 12 beats now. So breathing in for 4 beats. In, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, half the breath. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way out, and then relax and release. Fantastic. So we should really be now, have all these muscles should be now in fine form and ready to do some singing. So I'm going to pass you on to Joseph.
Hello, everyone. Let's just, as we take in our in-breath for this exercise, imagine that we are breathing into our lower back, which for me is quite near the chair that I'm sitting on, actually. So it's quite hard when you're sitting down to think about this. But do your best with me. We'll just do a small hum. And also, as we take in our in-breath, just remember the things we were doing with our cheeks here. And just as we hum, keep this nice and bright and raised, this part of our face. Just this little tune here. 3, 4.
I reckon I need to ask you to play the original sound card as well, Joseph.
I think I've already done that, but let's see. I'll try and let's see here. Audio settings, original sound. It is on. So
oh well.
Let's try something. Let's keep going and see if it improves. Let's open that up to a nice R vowel. Tori's doing an excellent thing with her hands here. That's fantastic. Just up a semitone. Lovely. Okay, let's do a slightly bigger interval. And another one. Another one. With apologies for the bass baritones among you, that might be a bit high for this time of the day. As we go up that octave there, imagine that the top note is actually in a hole in the ground. You might have heard that before, just in front of your feet. The top note is just down right there, and having been sort of thinking about the low note perhaps slightly higher than that. and really enjoy the slide up just on that pitch. I feel as though I can't do that without having my head in one position, as if there's a string attached at the top, like a puppet in Thunderbirds. Are there any Thunderbirds fans in the room? I love Thunderbirds. There's a great documentary on Netflix, which you go and watch. Everyone, I think that's enough for our 5-minute warm-up, to be honest, Tori.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you. So if we can cast our minds back to Byrd, I want to look at a few bits which I think illuminate what the G6 boys have been telling us this morning. Jamie, can we have a look at this on the screen, just at the top system of page 2? Now, guys, don't worry. We know you don't have scores for this. We're going to show it on the screen. And Guy, you were talking about the bar lines sort of needing to evaporate in this piece. I want to look at the bit here, which is I think that's a G, maybe. Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit flat this morning. La. So, est nobis pregustatum in mortis examina. That little bit there. If we just do that phrase, I think that illuminates nicely what you were saying, Guy, about how the phrasing doesn't necessarily sit with the bar line. So
that is exactly where I would point to. That's the ideal spot.
Thanks. So, should we just have a little sing of it? Maybe if Guy, if you would just sing that little phrase of your line, so we can learn it by ear, and then we'll look at how you phrase it.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Great. So we'd normally do this at quite a slow tempo, but this is an opportunity for us to kind of pick up the pace a little bit. So I'll try and kick it off. So here we go. Est nobis pregustatum in mortis examina.
Gorgeous.
So that's got
great.
a tricky bit at the end of it for in terms of our technique, in terms of our examiner, because all of this music probably feels quite low for the sopranos. Really, that's about the most open box moment that we get, and it's only up to a C. So that maybe it's not so difficult for the sopranos, but for us altos, that on a B flat is quite a tricky moment to kind of keep that support going all the way to the end of the phrase, make enough of a noise on ne, and also to then have the breath. The trick is to realize that the other parts are going to be there supporting you the whole time, and they don't have anything to do on that fourth beat. So you can take as long as you like in between that third and fourth beat, and your colleagues will help. That's one of the main things.
Great. So Guy, would you? I'm getting some feedback.
Yes. I think that's because Joseph unused. There we go. That's much better.
No worries.
Yeah. So speaking about these threes here in this copy, we can see that the fourth beat of just after sanguine in that top left bar, then esto is phrased exactly like that. The stress is on the first syllable, but it's on the fourth beat of the bar. So we don't want to go esto nobis pregustatum in more. We want to be able to see the threes here. So this is most obvious in the top part, maybe. And then the tenors are playing against it, but they're also in three. They just have a two that starts them off, which means that kind of samba rhythm sort of thing gets going.
I've never heard Byrd called a samba writer. Let's delve into it, but can we sing it first? Let's get everyone doing this.
Yeah.
So would you sing just up to pregustatum once and then again so we can all join in?
Yeah, absolutely. No. Right. Esto nobis
Great, thank you. And everybody together, just make sure that you're counting and you're feeling how the beat is moving so you don't move early. Here we go. And 1, 2. Esto nobis pregustatum. Great. You're probably still thinking in 4. Guy, what do we need to change now to think in that sort of hemiola pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. In a way, you can think about the hemiola. I think it's one of those things that it's one of those phrases now. It's not that simple. It's only 3 words. It's only about 7, 8 notes, something like that. So we don't need to really think about the score at this point. You'll see me shut my eyes a lot when I'm performing with the boys, which I get in trouble for sometimes, especially when Owen's conducting. But this is a real moment for that, I think. We know that the words are Esther nobis pregustatum. We want to head to that B flat on star. So we're going all the way through this phrase and just really enjoy these threes. Think about a kind of maybe a waltz or a dance and have that sway in it. All right, let's have
actually, yeah, that's it. So we were sort of thinking, Est nobis pregustatum.
And then at that point, you're off then. Yeah.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Let's all try that together. Here we go. And 1 and Est nobis pregustatum. Cool. Alrighty. Now, I would like to do that one more time, and let's just physicalize that a bit. And then, Josh, I'm going to ask you to put the cat amongst the pigeons, because your line does something very different. And maybe we can have a little duet moment, Josh. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a moment. Here we go, everybody. Just have a little move through it. Get your waltzy, sambery trousers on, and let's go. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. Est nobis pregustatum. Great. Now, Josh, could you have a little sing of what you've got at that exact phrase, just those 2.5 bars, and then we'll have everyone else can just sing what they've just learned, but against you. Oh, you're on mute though, mate.
Okay, unmute. There we go.
Lots of love.
Est nobis pregustatum.
You can hear that the word stresses land in different places from where the soprano is. So let's try that. Ladies and gentlemen, you get to duet with the wonderful Josh Cooter of G6. There's your starting note. I'm going to count you into 3. Josh, would you sing? In fact, would you count us in, Josh, so that there's no delay?
Sure thing.
Da.
1, 2, 3. Est nobis pregustatum.
And suddenly, all of those rhythmic complexities come out, even though when you look at it on the page, it actually looks like everyone's moving at the same time. They're not. There's so much hidden sort of contrast between the rhythms. Fantastic. I feel like if I had to pick one moment in that piece, that would be the moment. Shall we move on, guys? Let's look at a different piece of music. We've got such a lovely shopping list to get through today. We've got so much lovely music to look at. What should we do next? Should we take something a little bit more somber? Tomkins?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, let's go Tomkins.
It's one of our favourite pieces in the repertory, this.
Is it really? And why is that, Guy?
Well, actually, we performed it very early with the group. It is a piece that appeared. I mean, if you get a look at the score in a minute, it has version 041114 written in the score.
Oh.
So this goes straight back to our founding days. And it's I think it's one of the pieces that when we performed it for the first time, we realised a lot about where our voices sat in this repertory. So it's and we performed it all over the world now. So it's been a great joy.
So this is. Oh, go,
it's
Josh,
also just an absolutely wonderful piece of music. I mean, I'd say most people know what it's like to lose a family or a friend, and this really is the words here. Is obviously David lamenting the loss of his son Absalom, and Tomkins, Wilkes, Ramsey. So many composers have set this piece, but I think Tomkins does it the best with the kind of "Oh My Son," which kind of just trickles out, like the emotions coming out from one person passes to the next. It's an absolute joy to sing and impossible to not get 100% into when you're performing it.
Yeah, definitely. So does someone like to just introduce quickly what's the name of the piece and who's it by, just so that we know?
Shall I do that to see if my feedback is better? I'm going to put headphones on now. This is When David Heard by Thomas Tomkins.
Thanks, Joseph.
What an absolutely gorgeous piece. I know exactly what you mean, G6 guys. It's impossible to listen to that and not feel the impact of all of that. And I could so imagine, I think I've sung this only once or twice, but I can totally see how you really have to commit to the entire thing to really get it across, but also to feel like you're doing it justice. We're going to move to looking at the score quite quickly on this, and Tori's already queued me up with a page that she wants me to look at. But I forget which of you mentioned it when you said, have you got the score with all the markings on it? And I said, I do indeed. Now, this is the score that G6 use. I wonder, Joe, I wonder if you could talk us through what's going on here. There's a lot written on this score.
There is quite a few things written on the score. I think what I would say as a general concept is that the score is the starting point for us as a group, and we go from there. In the early days, we were rehearsing in Trinity College Chapel in Cambridge, and a couple of the group were in the choir there, and it was house style for some of their scores to come coloured up and equipped with lots of information extra to what was black and white in the printed score already before they'd even rehearsed it. And that was what Owen tried to do for us in early days as well. And I think it was very effective. We each have a colour. We each have a few different things that we had to perhaps look at and interpret. But this score was made now getting on for 8 years ago. In fact, it is over 8 years ago now, isn't it? Gosh, that is incredible to think. And as I said, it is a starting point. And I think we don't really look at the score very much in this piece because we know it so well. But there's lots of things in it that we have sort of internalised and taken forward with our interpretation. Are you able to scroll down? I mean, look on page 2 here. We've got some things at the top there that say time in red. In red ink, that you must do this, type thing. Actually, if you were to listen with the score to our performance again, you definitely would hear something happen there, but perhaps less so on the second time now. We kind of move through that a bit, and things develop as they go on. But I think essentially what it's getting at here is arriving with a bit more information than you would do originally. And actually, with this stuff, with all this music, there are no dynamics, there are no crescendi or diminuendi at all. It's up to you to decide what needs to happen. And as a group, I think we have done that over a period of many years, arrived at an interpretation.
The thing I find, sorry, Josh, I keep cutting you off.
Go for it.
The thing I find so interesting looking at this score is the little symbols. You clearly have developed a language. And when we are talking about marking up our scores, stay-at-home choir in our general sessions, one thing we say is pick a symbol that works for you and stick to it. And there are some here which I think are really useful, which may also work for our singers. This little bracket with a line through it, what does that say to you?
So that, and I can say as a Trinitarian, is a Marlovian, after the former director of the college choir, Richard Marlowe. He ran the choir for about 30 years or something like that. And yeah, so you can see it here in this bass part, for example, thus he said, and thus he said, and then there's an eyebrow with a stroke, and thus he said, and basically it's not a breath. It's a space where sometimes you might consider taking a breath, but it's actually a go through with a kind of moment of repose. Sometimes it can mean a glottal stop. Sometimes it can just be keeping the support going while just allowing that little moment to go past. You find them
little symbol to have.
They're absolutely vital. You'll see them all over our scores. That is definitely a notation that has made its way into our 2022 scores as well.
Yeah, and just quickly to go right back to the beginning, Absalom. There's a little brackety thing below there, bar 4. That I think is a lovely way of notating. What are you being asked to do at this point?
I think it's slightly longer than, if you look at it on the page, you might think it's quite like a tenuto marking that you get sometimes on notes. But as you can see, this is in bar 4, Jamie. Most of us have got on beat 1. We've got this little sort of bracket line underneath the syllable Absalom. That, to me, signifies that the vowel on that note needs to be as long as possible. It doesn't necessarily need to be marked, but it's a length thing. And the thing is, it's about information that you take from that at speed as you're reading the piece of music. To me, that's just a way of just elongating the vowel for as long as possible.
And why is that important in the context of the text?
Oh, well, it's the word stress of the word, absalon, and it is Phil. It's not just the word stress; it's the emotion behind what that word means.
Because that's the most important word in the whole piece, isn't it?
Yes,
for
absolutely,
sure.
and we're going to come back to it. It's his own son, which he has declared war on and killed, I believe. So that's the link between this opening stanza. We're establishing our characters, and then Absalom is going to come back at the end, and in a kind of beautiful loop.
I don't think a piece of polyphony has ever made me cry, apart from when this text is set. I don't think it matters which setting I'm listening to. That this text is just heartbreaking. Could you quickly just tell us the story?
What of the original text?
As in, like, just what is the story what happened to Absalom?
So this is King David, who Old Testament, whose son Absalom, I think, declared war on him, I believe, and there was a battle, and his son was killed. So even though he's fighting against him, there's this moment where he realizes that his actions or whatever has happened has led to his son dying, and this kind of concept of burying your offspring as opposed to the other way around, and that peculiar moment. It's as you say, taken up by a number of composers. I know Whitaker managed to stretch these 5 lines out to 12 minutes or something like that. Tomkins, actually, this piece, one of the most amazing things about it is it's the only sacred text that appears at the end of a book of madrigals. And you can tell that Tomkins has been writing madrigals, because this whole text, even though nominally it's a sacred text, you could call it a motet. It appears on a CD of ours, which is all motets. But it's borrowing so much from that madrigalian tradition that all of these words are imbued with that kind of chromaticism that he's playing with, and with that each individual word meaning its own individual thing, and not necessarily within the context of the whole phrase. So that's where he's managed to find such emotion from those 5 lines of text that you can spool it out so many different ways.
Yeah,
so
the music
much
and the
emotion.
words are so closely tied together. I mean, as you say, most kind of madrigals, I mean, simple things like he went up and it goes up. Little things like that, which then kind of really bring it into the whole kind of like madrigalian, kind of like fa-la-la almost type of stuff.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at starting on page 6, if we may. This is beautiful. Would God I had died for thee. This text comes again and again and again. The way you guys sing it is so emotional. How do you tread the line between making a sort of a healthy sound and a lovely legato sound, but also imbuing it with that really raw emotion?
I think it's just yes. It's hard. It is, because it's like in kind of Vigilante as well, where you're just kind of going all guns blazing and just having to just kind of clock that there are kind of, you still need to kind of go back to kind of the kind of raw kind of technical side of kind of singing. So I think for kind of Would God I Had Died for Thee, it's just kind of keeping that, as I said, that ball of string, that kind of breath going the whole time, rather than just kind of, if the breath goes, then everything just starts to tense up, as you would if you were kind of like crying or kind of letting out all this emotion. So it's kind of really kind of just having that little bit in the back of the mind that is kind of like, I know how to sing, I know, and all these years of practice are still there, and you just need to kind of clock into that, I think.
I also think that, can I just button on Josh's point there? I think we have learned over the years of singing this piece that at times less can be more. We've definitely put a lot of ourselves into this piece. I think we toured the program that this piece is in for us recently, and there are things that are newer to us and maybe more technically demanding to sing, but I always feel the most tired after singing this piece, because you put so much of your emotional self into it. I think at this particular moment in the piece, Would God I Had Died for Thee, there are lots of mini duets and trios and things that in the score are very helpfully laid out for us by these little brackets at the start of phrases, and it's the duality of for instance, Josh and Guy, it would be in bar 50, the top part and the middle part there, creating the affect of the text together. You share it out and be aware of the balance and all of that to create the sonority that you want overall, I think is key.
The whole this less is more thing is very useful as well, because the words are repeated so many times that you kind of have to go somewhere with it. You can't just let it all out of the bag on the first "Would God I had died for thee," because then what does everyone else do after that?
That's true.
And
There's also
sorry. Oh no, I said, and the chromaticism of the text does it too as well. You know,
absolutely, for sure.
Would God I had died for thee. Oh my goodness me! It's already there. The angst and the conflict is already there in the chromaticism of the writing.
There's an element of we were saying less is more, kind of pair Tintinnabuli, the gaps between the notes actually being quite important here as well. So would God I had died for thee. There's moments there where nothing is happening in theory between the two D's and between the wood gods, but that's the moment where, you know, that the kind of nice being stuck right in. So I think that's a really kind of and when you're doing that, as you can see, Josh and I have that wonderful moment in bar 50, as we can all see wood god, and we do it exactly the same moment. You can probably see us linking up in the video at that point.
Yeah, this is what we're going to dive into.
There's time for all of these things to happen. You have to kind of know, it's just about knowing the piece really well.
And it's lots of little solos, essentially, isn't it? I want everyone to sing just that little bit so they can feel what you've just said. Tintinnabuli is an unusual word. It's not one that comes up on your sort of weekly trip to Sainsbury's. But what exactly does that mean?
It's a technique that Arvo Pärt has developed for writing minimalist music, which basically Tintinnabuli is the ringing of little bells. And so each note is a kind of little pristine sounding of a little bell. And it's often defined by these incredible gaps between the music. The music is much more about the silence than it is about the notes.
And Joe, are you lime green? Is bar 48? Is that your solo?
So indeed, I am. Yes.
Would God I had died for thee, for thee. Would God? Would you just sing that little section there so we can hear how you're splitting those notes up to make them little pristine bells?
Yeah. Would God I had died for thee, for thee.
Let's have a go at that, everybody. 3, 4.
Would God I had died for thee, for thee.
So talk to us a little bit, Joe, about how you're loading those consonants.
To me, the word that is imbued with the most emotion is the word died. You could go towards God if you wanted to, because it's the high part of the phrase. But I think that's not only quite short-sighted in terms of the phrase length, on note 2, but it's also not as important a word, I think, in terms of the feeling of it. But as Guy was saying about the consonants, there is things that you can do with the G of God to just soften the blow of that top note. Would God, rather would God. You could just slow down that consonant ever so slightly in its delivery on the
Beautiful.
G there.
Absolutely.
And then the double D on I had died for thee. That's what I'm focusing on really. It's the consonants.
Let's sing it like that then. Here we go. 3, 4.
Would God I had died for thee, for thee.
Beautiful. That's and every time that text comes back, the way that the text is coloured helps to build the sort of emotion of it every time.
I also think, as a general rule, it's nice to consider why a composer has chosen to set some words again, particularly within the same phrase. So for me, in bar 49 and bar 50, obviously you can see in terms of the notes on the page where it's heading back home to G, but he's chosen to repeat just 2 of the words for emphasis, I think. And so it's nice to do something different with those words. Of course, the whole phrases repeated, within the kind of whole music, you need to work out as a group what you're going to do. For us, we are heading very much towards the first bar of the next page that you're looking at there. You're just seeing the apex at the end of the page there of where we're going.
Yeah.
And then it kind of tails off.
One little last duetty bit before we get onto our third piece of the day. I don't think we can move on until we've sung the little duet at 50. Do you? So we've got would God I had died for thee, for thee. Should we just have a go at singing that, everybody? Am I still in tune? We go 3. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so forgive me. And 1. Would God I had died for thee, for thee. Right. And now I'm coming back to you again, Josh. Would you do a little duet with us, and then maybe we can swap and we can have a go at singing the tenor line as well. So let's see. We're both starting on A's, aren't we? There we go. 3, 4.
Would God I had died for thee.
Okay. Would you do that one more time so we can have a go at learning the tenor line, and then we can
Sure
swap over?
Would God I had died for thee.
Beautiful. And I didn't count us in that time. So if you were singing along with that, ladies and gentlemen at home, you would be timing yourself with the breath, which is exactly how the group coordinate how they sing together. So this time, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but Guy, would you mind singing the soprano line so people can have a go at duetting the tenor with you?
Yes, absolutely. As we get there, have an experiment, everyone, with putting this first B flat nice and high, and then when we get to the F sharp, putting it nice and low. That's a really fun bit of this little duet, and it's going to really help out our tuning in the long run, I think.
Would you sing it for us first so we can?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, cool. So now, if you want to sing the tenor, you're on Would God, or if you're singing soprano with Guy, you're on Would God. Here we go.
Right.
Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it on the breath, everyone. Would God had died for thee.
Yeah, and there's so much that you can draw from singing with you, Guy, to help phrase the line. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We must move on. We've got so much to get through, but I feel like it's an absolute masterclass, that piece, in how, like you said, less is more, and how the way that the text is, the music is written, brings out the meaning of the text. So final one, beautiful little short gem of a piece, Jacques Arcatel, the Silver Swan. Let's have a little listen.
Il Bianco.
Oh yeah, Il Bianco, yeah.
We've got it.
It's on its way, ladies and gentlemen.
Lovely. It's funny that you say the Silver Swan, Tori, because it's actually the kind of known as kind of the Silver Swan of the Italian madrigals.
Got the wrong swan, guys.
Exactly, and in both, it's all about a white, sweet song, kind of dying whilst they're singing. Really, I mean, Guy is our kind of Italian madrigal expert here.
Wow, that's an introduction. Yeah, Joseph and I were in Italy last week actually, and it's really lovely to feel kind of really connected with that kind of history. Yeah, it's about that moment that notoriously swans don't make any noise when they're alive, although of course they do. And then when they finally die, their lungs deflate and they actually make a noise that's considered. Apparently, it's supposed to be considered the most beautiful sound in the world. I can't imagine it's particularly lovely myself, but there a lot of songs are written about it. So yeah, this is a wonderful little madrigal, and it was famous. A bit like Palestrina's Io son ferito. It's rare in that it was a piece that was famous during the composer's lifetime. It was published buckets of times in pretty much every madrigal collection that you would have been hawking around Renaissance Italy. You would have been being able to find this one, and I mean, I think it's justly vaunted. Really, it's a really wonderful piece, and that even just that Di mille morti at the end, where you can enjoy that lovely spinning forth as it goes around, is it'd be worth it just for those few bars.
So shall we have a look at exactly those 2 bars? Let's see, do we have bar numbers?
It'll be right at the end.
Great. So, oh gosh, yes, that is the longest note I've ever seen in my life for you, Guy.
Yeah, good old lungas. Yeah, this is another opportunity for us to be able to hold our breaths for forever. The sopranos and altos singing this part, we're going to need to really have to store ourselves up before sarei contento. I would be contented. Yeah.
We do get slightly lucky in being a one-person, also one-to-a-part group, so that Guy can actually just add some more words if he wants to, rather than having to team it up with everyone else on his part. So
yeah,
add some more words if he needs to. Sorry, forgive me. What do you mean?
Well, like as if you have like a long amen, you can always put another amen in there.
Oh!
So Guy might put a couple more miles, a couple more
contentos maybe. Sarei contento. Yes, exactly. Yeah, but performance practice these notes is not terribly well understood, to be honest. So if you're stuck on that note and you hear everyone else doing more words, you can have a little bit of a play. As long as you're not just doing it at the end when everyone else is on toe.
I feel like I have really learned something about Gesualdo 6 and historical performance.
Lift the lid.
What's the word? Sort of dramatic license with historical performance here. Fascinating. We've lost the score. Let's see. Are we able to get it back? Great. So let's have a little listen to the end. I mean, I feel like I've. Is there anybody either? Joseph, Guy, or Josh, who's got a little bit in that end which you think is particularly interesting that we could all have a go at singing with you?
Sure.
I'd love to throw Joseph under the bus for that sarei at the end, because that's a tricky word to sing under that melisma as well, with everything else going on around it. But go for it, Josh.
No, absolutely, Joe. Go for it. I'm enjoying this sarei as well. So
yeah, I mean the thing about this part of the piece is that we all have the same musical line shared. Certainly the 3 top parts. Sam has it occasionally, but we're sort of dancing around on top of Sam there. And at the end, Josh and I are sort of sparring on the same notes. Di mille morti di sarei contento. It might be worth just saying the text once through as a unit. I'll say that again. I'm going from my bar 42, and I'm on the second part down. It's that text there. I'm just going to say it once, and you can say it with me after that.
If you say it twice, then you say it once, and then we'll do it with you.
Fine. So, di mille morti di sarei contento. Di mille morti di sarei contento.
And this is a really wonderful opportunity to enjoy our raddoppio consonants here. So after D, that M, you can effectively double it in your mind, and the L as well of mille. Oh, here we go. So we got there's a wonderful opportunity to roll these consonants and vowels around in the mouth in a kind of mealy mouthed way, if you will. So di mille mortildi. This is proper kind of, imagine that you're in the backseat of a Ferrari with your beloved sort of opportunity to have a play with your lips, teeth, and tongue here.
Yes, let's just do that a couple of times. Di mille morti di sarei contento. I now feel very embarrassed because I realized when I started that I don't speak Italian. So you got my best effort, but maybe I should hand back to one of you guys just to practice that one last time.
I think that was perfect. Let's do it once more. Let's do it once more. And really enjoy it when you get to Joseph's part on this melismon. Sarei, I would be sarei. So the emphasis was on the E, written E, sarei. So let's have a go. Here we go. Di mille mortildi sarei contento. Perfect. And another thing with this, these feminine endings, so much of Italian has these wonderful feminine endings. Again, there's a bar line. It's in this score, it's massive, just before the syllable to at the end. And these feminine endings are a really tricky thing, especially for conductors to get together, especially if there's more of us. But we don't want to go contento. We want to go contento. And that last syllable, although it's long, the note, we don't want to stress it in a way that is kind of we're putting something else onto it. That's it. It's there. We are content, and we're contento, like that. That'd be lovely.
And then when you add the melody to it, Joseph, what does it sound like?
Di mille morte di sarei contento.
Honestly, I could just have you singing in my living room all day. So
nice.
should we do that all together, starting on the
Sorry, yes.
No,
Yeah,
that's fine.
sorry, we do it up a semitone. That's why I was doing that. Sorry.
Well, actually, to be honest, we can let's do it at your pitch.
Okay.
So yeah, we can just cope.
That's an F, written F. Di mille morti di sarei contento.
And one more time, if you would, so we can all try and join in, and then maybe we'll add somebody else to duet.
Di mille morti di sarei contento.
Who is going to be our partner to duet now we've learnt the line?
Probably me, I guess.
Yeah, I would suggest
Yeah.
Josh.
Oh,
If
it's back to
If I
Josh.
join in bar 43 of my di mille, that might work.
Yeah, lovely. Let's do that. So we're just, if you would count us in, Josh, and then just stay quiet for the bar. So you give us and one.
Nice.
That would do really nicely.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So, and one. Di mille morti di sarei contento.
Lovely. And
Was that
Guy,
right?
could I trouble you to start at bar 40 so we can have a go at coming in, because you actually give us the note that we're about to sing, don't you, if we're singing the second line down?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's have a go at that, shall we?
Do you mind giving me my first two notes, Joe? This left sharp. Cool. And one.
And there it was, the little extra contento in action.
I realised I didn't have enough breath to get through the whole phrase.
I mean, come on, you are on Zoom in your kitchen in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, so I think you can be forgiven. That is absolutely lovely. It's so It's amazing to be able to duet with you, because I'm learning so much about phrasing and the way that you're treating the phrases just from singing against you. So thank you so much for that. We only have a couple of minutes for any questions. I'm sure there are going to be plenty. Do you want to sling them all in the chat, and we'll burn through as many of them as we can in the time? Guys, you have access to the chat, so maybe you could just see them as they come in and pick out some that take your fancy. I'm going to open the chat so that everybody can chat with everyone. Go crazy, guys.
I've got a good one from earlier that I can jump in. When you're deciding, Joe, I think you spoke at the very beginning when we looked at Ave Verum, you spoke about the speed of the piece was one of the first things you talked about. How do you decide as a group where the tempo falls? You've got such a large window of interpretation that you could choose from. How do you do that as a group?
I think we've worked on our sound now for a great number of years, and it does, as I was saying earlier as well, it does rely on each other to make the sound. It's not one person bringing a new sound that we then kind of mesh together. It's one sound really of the group. We do individualize it a lot as we can with the music. I think it is to do with how long the phrases are and how we can breathe it as one. That will dictate the tempo pretty much from the start. If it's a more upbeat piece, I would say there are more options, because we can inflect it more locally, I guess. If it's, I don't know, if for instance, we do this by William Byrd, Laudate Pueri Dominum, which is quite sort of upbeat, and definitely in 2, so we can kind of fit in breath as it goes, and we can vary the tempo. I think it does kind of in performance of Ave Verum, chaps, you probably will agree, the tempos are often quite flexible depending on how the room is feeling and how the concert environment
I think
is.
that's a big one, really, because obviously we perform in so many different buildings. I mean, most being churches, but a church can have a 2-second acoustic, it can have a 20-second acoustic, so that really changes how if you're listening to a piece in a humongous acoustic, words are obviously harder to get through, so you then have to sometimes slow a piece right down just to be able to really sell it in a particular venue.
And it might be different depending on what point of the day you're in as well. If we're not feeling particularly resonant in the morning, it might be one of those things that, like, there's a bit of a kind of group think about what we all feel like is working. If we're all running out of breath at the end of a phrase, then it's probably time to kind of kick it on a bit.
Or you've all got a train to catch or something.
has been known.
Hopefully not quite like that, but yeah.
I'm joking.
It is all very flexible, to be honest, is the answer. I mean, if we're going for a CD recording session and we've got to nail it down so that the takes are the same, for instance, then we might think about it slightly more forensically in terms of, like, this needs to be the tempo. But after we've recorded it and we're doing it in concert, it's very fluid, to be honest.
I think this is something we're learning as we've sort of talked to and interviewed so many different artists as part of this project, as part of Stay at Home Choir as a project. And something that comes back again and again is that everything is a grey area. There's always nuance. There's always interpretation. There's always got to be an element of style, an element of common sense. It's not just how loud is a mezzo forte or how fast does this piece go. And when you embrace that, you really are taking your music making to the next level, and that's what you're helping us to do, guys.
It's funny
thank you
because
so much.
Oh, that's a pleasure. Yeah. So just quickly, I was supposed to say the second piece, the Tomkins, which we did tonight. We have a thing that we don't rehearse that piece anymore because we know it well enough from the page. So actually, we now just work at it as it happens in the room in the concert, which makes it kind of all the more special for us because it feels more real, and you can just kind of then just work off what you've got in front of you rather than saying, as you say, this is a mezzo forte, this is how long a line is. It's actually just, we know this music, we just want to get into the character of it, which is really lovely to be able to do.
You guys really do have the best job in the world, don't you?
Pretty good most days.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time on a weekend. And
Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you found this session enlightening. And thank you to those people who are maybe not singing with us on the project, but have joined us to watch the live stream. I hope you've had an enjoyable time too. And if you'd like to get involved, you can visit www.stayathomechoir.com and join in with the fun. Thank you so much to Guy and Josh and Joe. And my lovely partner in crime, Jamie. And we'll see you again very soon.
You will see, everyone, I've added a little sign-up page. If you want to hear more from Gesualdo 6, I've added that to the project page. You can go and have a look at that. Sign up for their mailing lists. Look at all their fancy new photography and videos that they've done, and hear where you can hear them in person next time. Thanks for joining us. G6, thanks again.
Pleasure.
Lovely to see you, everyone. See you all soon.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, guys.
Real treat.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, that's my Christy.
Bye.
Bye.